True story. There's a mother and a father who decide to get ready to get up on a Sunday morning and take their children to church. They have a son that is nonverbal. They also have a daughter who is autistic. And as they begin to get their clothes on and they're getting their children ready, they're expressing about how excited they are to literally be able to go to a church because they've been looking for a church home. They realize that they should be in church because that's what they've been taught. And they said amongst themselves that we've gone away from church for so long, we feel terrible because we know that we weren't raised this way because even Jesus went to church. So if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us. So they now set out to get to this brand new church. When they park their car, no one greets them in the parking lot. As they're bringing the two babies in and they seem to be having trouble, no one greets them as they're walking. When they get inside of the church, nobody greets them as they come in. They're still smiling and feeling good because they're coming into the house of the Lord. They walk to the top of the steps. When they get to the top of the steps, no one greets them. No one makes them feel welcome. What happens is that they sit down and they begin to talk among themselves. And wouldn't you know it, service begins to start. When service starts, there is the young man who is literally nonverbal. He begins to lift his hands in the air. He's not saying a word, but he's simply lifting his hands in the air. He puts his hands down. Now he lifts his hands in the air again. There's no music playing, but yet he's lifting his hands and he's simply waving his hands. And in typical fashion, wouldn't you know it, that people began to talk about the young man. Why is he waving his hands? Why don't the parents tell him to put his hands down? Why doesn't he just behave himself because he's in the house of God? As fate would have it, what happens is that the pastor begins to get up. And when the pastor begins to get up to exhort the crowd, the musicians begin to play behind him. And what happens is that the young lady with autism stands up and she begins to clap. And then she sits back down. She stands up and she begins to clap. And then she sits back down. She tries to stand up and go out of the aisle, but the parents do not allow her to go out of the aisle. So she sits back down. Now, amongst the people that are in church, they're talking about the young man with his hands in the air. And now they're talking about the young lady standing up and clapping. But what the congregation does not know is that one child is nonverbal and the other one has Tourette's. What happens is that they began to talk so much. They began to accuse so much. They began to verbally assault so much that the parents began to hear everything that was being said. The parents literally in the middle of service picked up their children, walked out of the door, got to the bottom of the steps. Nobody greeted. Nobody said goodbye. They got to the parking lot. Nobody greeted. Nobody said goodbye. They got into their cars. They went home. And they basically said, we'll try again somewhere next week. The moral of the story is that everyone is not church trained like some of you. Everyone did not grow up with the Lord like some of you claim to have grown up with the Lord. Everyone does not necessarily raise their children in church. Everyone does not necessarily know church etiquette. So sometimes it's okay to allow people to come in the building without putting your mouth on them, without opening your mouth to tell someone next to you what they should or should not have done. Amazingly, millions of people are turned off from church because they run into foolishness such as that. Did anyone in the church know that one was autistic and one was nonverbal? No, but this is why it pays to treat people with respect, because you never know what someone is going through. So the very next time that you decide that you want to speak on someone in your church that you are a member of, the next time that you want to verbally assault someone inside of the church that you claim to be a member of, the next time you want to lay your mouth on someone in the church that you claim to be a member of, think it not strange that someone cusses you out. Think it not strange that someone puts you in your place. Think it not strange that someone snatches off your wig and tells you to respect them, because at the end of the day, in God's house, everyone is welcome. But because we have so many people who are in God's house, but they don't know God, they treat other people like mud. In the body of Christ, these things should not be. And the kingdom needs more people to begin to call out the foolishness. As long as we are passive, and as long as we continue to allow great grandma's friend that she went to high school with to say whatever and do whatever, we will continually have hell in our churches. But until the pastors and the preachers and the bishops and the elders and the overseers and the deacons and the trustees and the ushers develop a set of courage, morals, and understanding, church will continue to be a mess. I challenge you to call out those spirits that are in your church and ask yourself the question, how many people have been ran away from our church because of the mouths of other people who claim to know God? Something to think on.